Good evening and welcome to All for United. There is absolutely nothing in this world more exciting than when you click the wrong button and you see Dan's face when it happens. He's like, what's happened? He's not used to it. So there we go. I recommend it. If you ever get the chance to do it, just whack on the jingle before you push the thumbnail on. It absolutely blows his mind. Evening, everybody. I hope you are well. It just seems like only 24 hours ago that we were here talking all about Sheffield United. And now here we are once again, immediately looking forward to another weekend of fabulous football, hopefully. As you can see, we've assembled ourselves a smaller than usual panel for a smaller than usual game, really. Let's be honest. It's got levels to it, this game, but not many that are that deep. So we'll discuss it. We'll do our bit. And then we will push it on to a couple of other parts of the conversation. We did manage to get through to a couple of Burnley fans, but unfortunately they were busy, so it didn't quite work out as well as we wanted to with them. So you have to make do with us. And speaking of us, that's exactly what we've got. We have thrown in, or brought back rather, somebody who had a superb debut last week. So good that we decided to bring him back in. We're looking to tie him down to a 4-year contract sometime soon. We'll see how we get on. It's Mr. Matt Morgan. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, really, really good. Pleased to be back on. Thank you very much for having me again. Feels like a lifetime ago since the first show was on, but yeah, good to be back.
I would say it feels like a lifetime ago as well, but genuinely, it doesn't. Like they're rolling into one. I still feel like I'm on the same one that I started 6 months ago. It's non-stop. And we love that. It's good. So that is all good. Lovely to see people get themselves into the chat already. If you're already here and watching, please do like, and if you haven't already, subscribed as well. Evening to you, Andy Wall, and evening to you, NT. Lovely to see you both here. And it is, of course, my right-hand man to my left-hand side. He is here. He has dragged himself up. He's not feeling the best he's ever felt. But it's Mr. Dan Field. How are you doing, sir?
I feel like I asked people to pray for me so I didn't get man flu. It just did not work.
Well, take from that what you will. Really, take from that what you will. Is it our prayer doesn't work, or is it just that man flu is just that, just that good that it can break through just about everything? Who knows? But there we go. So there you go. The injury list not quite making it to AFU. We've got the capabilities of being able to carry on regardless of what's going on, which is good news for us. Right, we're going to kick off very, very quickly with our good friend Matt down here. He obviously didn't get the chance to put his 2 pence in about the Sheffield United game. So we'll kick off with that because that feels like a good place to start. How did you feel, Matt, with the 4-2 result? The general consensus last night was that it was a good game. It was a better performance, as you would expect, against a side that were bottom of the table. We've limited them in terms of shots, but still some mistakes in there that against better opposition could have been a bit more fatal.
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of get the sense that it's kind of like that part of the season now where we're not really playing for anything. We obviously just try to get into some sort of European competition. The same mistakes happening in the team, but is that down to the defence being very short on numbers? I think going forward, we looked a lot better going forward, definitely. I'm glad to see Hoyland get a goal. That was good. That was a very long overdue. But yeah, I think the general consensus was a good win, a game we expected to win, obviously considering where Sheffield are in the league. But yeah, it's just nice to get back to winning ways and 4 goals. It's always good to get the 4 goals. So yeah, but it's just a shame about the goals. It's very, very soft goals we are conceding at the minute, that's a bit of a disappointment. But yeah, overall, good win, 3 points, and on to the next one.
No, absolutely got to be happy with that. Simon's mentioning to Dan that maybe a bit of cowpole might help. He's not feeling it.
It's got too much sugar in it.
It's a good point. We've got to be careful with sugar when it comes to Dan. He's sweet enough.
The amount of chemists I've been in today to try and get sugar-free medicine of any kind is ridiculous. And I ended up with just normal Halls or soothers because they're caked in sugar.
It's interesting because Mary Poppins told us that a spoonful of sugar helps medicine go down, but in your case, this doesn't seem to be correct.
No, a spoonful of sugar helps my foot fall off.
I shouldn't laugh, but you shouldn't say it either. So there you go. Right, NT talking about contracts. Make sure it's 4 years and 350 grand a week plus bonuses from that since we're Man United, Barry.
I'd happily say that.
I mean, we might be able to go to £3.50 per week, but that's probably going to be about as good as it gets, I'm afraid. And then Box throwing himself in here. QPR 2, Leeds 0 after 30 minutes. And I've got to be honest, I read that first of all and went, why do we care? And then I just remembered I hate Leeds. So that worked for me. Hello, Twilumber. Good to see you. On exactly that, Simon, a spoonful of sugar. And as you can see, finish the song off in your own way. Yeah, it's all good stuff. Dan had his say about the Sheffield United game last night, so we'll come back to you again quickly, Matt, with regards to Burnley game. And what I'm kind of intrigued with on this one is that we did incredibly well in terms of limiting the shots on goal. Just to 10. Now, again, I get it. I know Twilumber. I know where you're going with this already. Yes, it's only Sheffield United. But everything starts somewhere. And if that's where we can get to, where we've limited it to just the 10 shots, are we looking for a similar sort of performance there against Burnley? And do you think we can do that, bearing in mind that was a ragtag makeshift back four?
Yeah, I don't see why not. To be fair, like I say, Burnley in a very similar position to Sheffield in terms of the fighting for points. I think United's main issue, I think, against teams like this generally tends to be trying to break them down. Normally defensively against these sort of teams, you wouldn't expect 30 odd shots like against some of the better teams like we have in previous games. So makeshift defence or not, you won't expect a high number of shots from Burnley. I think they are going to stay quite defensive and just try and nick a goal, keep themselves in the game, that sort of thing. But no, I think keep the numbers down, keep it going. Like I say, it's going to be the same defence again, because I don't think anyone's back. I don't believe. So it's going to be the same back four again, most likely. But yeah, just keep it going. Like I say, hopefully they can keep scoring the goals in winning games.
I mean, again, very, very tricky to disagree with that. Dan, where would you stand with that? Because we had this chat about the defence. We know it's not the situation that we would like it to be, but it is the situation that it is. Do you think that it's realistic to not want the defence, but to hope, I suppose, that the defence can get back to actually limiting the number of shots on goal that we allow? Or is that just a pipe dream and we should probably be ready for more shots to be coming on goal as soon as we have better opposition?
I blame more than just the defence, to be fair. I think the midfield and attackers have to take responsibility. We just need to cut out that gap in the middle of the pitch. We don't cut out the gap well enough. So that's why we're conceding a lot of shots. I saw Ten Hag's presser and apparently Mason Mount's back. So I wonder whether he'll drop in for a bit of legs in midfield. But it's up to everybody. I was looking at some of Burnley's results and fixtures. They tend to score, but they tend to concede a lot as well. So I imagine it's going to be really, really similar to what we've seen at Sheffield United. We just need to control the play again like we did before. That seemed to help Fernandes in the game more. And Box is spot on as well. And it's not just Garnacho and Anthony, but Højlund needs to get involved too. They need to work better as a unit. There's still a little bit of selfishness going off when we hit a certain scoreline or we get ahead like 3-1, and we don't tend to pass anymore, or we pick the wrong decisions. So there's improvement to be made everywhere, to be fair. Yeah, but it's on more than just the defence. We saw it the other day. There was a mistake from Onana, which is what we conceded from, and then another cutback, and it's stuff that we've been doing all season. So we just need to cut it out. Yeah, I agree with Andy there as well. I was saying that I think the Sheffield United game was going to be different to the Burnley game, because I think Burnley will be a little bit. I think Sheffield United were quite relaxed in the play, if that makes sense. They probably think they're already down. I think Burnley will be a little bit more on edge and probably a little bit tighter at the back, a little less likely to break. they'll want to keep it close for longer and try and nick the 3 points, because if you get 3 points, they're well in with a chance of staying up. So it's a much bigger game for Burnley than it was Sheffield United. I think that might come across.
The time wasting was a big one as well. I noticed during the game, Sheffield seemed to be time wasting, and I couldn't quite understand why. Like, what have they got to lose? It's like, I know they're pretty much down, but it's one of them, you play Man United at Old Trafford, what's the point in time wasting? You just go for it, don't you? I thought it was a bit strange, but that's just me.
It seems a bit strange, absolutely. It's not the most sensible thing you're going to do. Well, we've mentioned sort of Burnley a little bit there, so let's bring them into the conversation a bit more, Matt, because as you said, Sheffield United were virtually down anyway. You know, we knew that all we were doing was helping send them on their way. But Burnley are not quite in that position just yet. It's very, very tight. Really between Forest, Luton and Burnley. Everton looking like they're pretty much safe. Brentford, again, looking pretty much safe as well. So it's going to be 2 from 3 in Forest, Luton and Burnley. And obviously, they're all on 34 points and there's 3 points separating them. Mm-hmm. With that in mind, I mean, Sheffield United were a tricky proposition, but they were just playing for pride, just because, you know, who knows when they're going to come to Old Trafford again and get the opportunity to experience that. Burnley, complete opposite, fighting for their lives under a manager who doesn't really like us anyway, because, you know, he's from across the road. And on top of that, a manager who's fiery. You know, he's got himself sent off and had a few issues as well with VAR, as I'm sure many of us have, and officials and all of that sort of stuff. They are literally fighting for their lives. What are you expecting on this game tomorrow? Because we struggled a little bit against Sheffield United, but we did dominate. You know, it was just about finishing, and to be fair, the goalkeeper Fotheringham was just absolutely unreal. But what are you expecting in the game tomorrow?
I am still expecting United to dominate. We are the home team. We're playing Burnley. Like, it's one of them. You do expect them to dominate still. I think it will be a different game in the sense of, like you say, Burnley are actually playing for something, unlike Sheffield United. Like you say, they'd probably take a point today. You know what I mean? They set up and take a point happily at Old Trafford. But I feel like Burnley of the past, whether that's going to apply tomorrow, I don't know. We do struggle sometimes to break teams like Burnley down. They can sit back quite a bit, quite defensive, and just try and nick a goal, which I feel like that's what they might actually set up to do. But yeah, I feel like tomorrow's game is going to be a whole lot different to the Sheffield one. I think Burnley will be a bit more up for it than Sheffield were. They were pretty much down and out after we score a goal. There was no sense of urgency to score again. Like, at the time wasting was a big thing. I don't think you'll see any of that tomorrow, to be honest. I'll be very surprised. Burnley will definitely be up for it, and they'll definitely give it a good shot.
That makes sense. And Dan, with regards to that as well, we talk a little bit about the goal differences as well, because Burnley are, you know, negative 32. It's the second worst in the league, obviously, with Sheffield United being the worst. But I mean, we're not exactly putting up trees either with our +1 goal difference. I get worried about this. I put on the tweet today about us trying to improve on our goal difference. And I say that because we've actually been on 1 quite a few times over the last couple of months. And every time we get there, we immediately get ourselves back down to sort of 0 and then negative numbers again. And we're having to put it back around. It's too much to wish for, isn't it? That we're going to have this game against Burnley, knock 3 or 4 past them, improve the goal difference, and get the 3 points. It's going to be a scrap, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with what NT says. We're so deep into the season now, I can't really see us turning the form around in terms of what we see on the pitch. Biggest game of the season is now obviously going to be the FA Cup final. I do think Burnley are going to be much more up for it than Sheffield United were. I mean, there was 1-0 up and 2-1 up in that game is madness. If we do that against Burnley, I think they're much more likely to show a bit more fight and keep the lead, not let us back in. But I think they're going to sit deep and try and hit us on the counter-attack, which is what we've struggled with this season. Burnley are very good at doing that. So I think it's going to be a tough game anyway. it's going to again come down to the midfield if we can keep that gap closed and if we can keep the control. What helped against Sheffield United was the pure control that we was allowed to have. I don't think Burnley are going to probably allow us to do that. We'll be able to have the ball at certain points, but Company won't allow us to have it in their half as much as we did against Sheffield United. It's an interesting one how it's going to play out. I'm just not expecting any huge improvement in performance. I think he's already said he wants to finish as high as possible. He's going to put out his strongest team, which means there's not going to be any changes of note. It'll probably be the same team, to be honest, that played Sheffield United. Maybe one change. I can see maybe Mount coming in for Eric. Was it Ericsson? I think Mount maybe coming for Ericsson. That's the only change I can see. But the performances just aren't there. There's nothing pointing to like this is going to happen. The only thing I've seen from Man United games for the last 10 is eventually a team's going to end up scoring 5 past us if we keep letting them have 30 shots on target. So if we can just stop that happening, that'd be fantastic. But no, I don't see any miracle performances coming. Ultimately, Ten Hag's got to get to the summer now, and then we will see what happens with the club, the decisions. But I don't think there's going to be some miraculous 5-1 against Burnley. I hope I eat my words come tomorrow, but I just can't see it. I think it'll be another scrape, maybe 2-1, maybe 3-2. But I think it's going to be a close game. Like I say, I just think Burnley are really going to be up for this one because they, in essence, their next, 4 games they've got left? They're all cup finals. They've got 4 cup finals, so I think they'll play like that as well. Company will have them right up for it. And so let's be honest, Andy's put a good stat up there about they've not lost in 7. They've claimed more points away from home. 13 of the 23 points are on the travels this season. So that's a good stat in their favour. But if you would have said 7 games ago, Burnley might have a chance going into the last 4 of staying up, I'd laughed in your face. I'd have said, nah, don't talk rubbish. Them 3 are going down. So they've put themselves in a really good position. I hope they don't. Really. Because I'm so I watched a lot of Burnley last year. And they're not playing the same sort of free football as they was in the Championship. They sort of got to the Premiership and they've anchored the brakes on a little bit and what they were doing. So it's disappointing that they didn't it's like watching Ipswich. When Ipswich come up, I hope they carry on playing the free-flowing football they've done in the Championship and not sort of, it's like they give too much respect to the Premier League teams. I remember when Blackpool came up all them years ago, and I know they ended up going down and there was games where they lost like 5-4 and 4-3 and stuff like that. They didn't change the style of football. They were brave. They carried on playing football. So I was hoping to see more of that from Burnley this year, but it's just not been there. But no, it's definitely going to be a tough game. It's going to be completely different to Sheffield United in the sense of how it goes. But I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. It is in that respect. And again, as you put here, Andy saying Burnley's performed better away from home, claiming 13 of the 23 points on their travels this season. Andrew Opta-Wall just there helping us out here at AFU. Box only liked it to 7 goals by Saturday night, to which NT says, can't think of any other team other than United that can make a 6-goal game boring. Burnley honestly could go either way. According to Ten Hag, we don't have any centre-backs returning, so it'll be a tough watch. According to all of the previews I've seen and read, as Dan said, Mason Mount's the only one who looks even remotely like he's in with a chance of playing the game. So I'm saying Burnley are very beatable, but us being us, we'll still struggle and we'll make them look like a top 10 team, not fighting relegation. It's just amazing that you said that. That seems like a roundabout way of praising Man United because we're a top 10 team. So I don't know. They're going to make them look like us. I don't know. I feel like you've tied yourself in a knot there, Twilumber, that you might struggle to untie yourself from. But I challenge you to give it a go. Again, the other chat here, Matt, we had this chat yesterday. You said, I hope Ahmad starts would be his first start of the season. Where would you go? Would you start Ahmad or would you start Anthony? Because there are there's grumblings rumbling along at the moment as to whether or not people should be starting with Ahmad or whether we should be starting with Anthony. If you were bald, which one would you pick?
Personally, Ahmad any day of the week. I just don't see what Anthony actually brings to the team. to be quite honest. That's not me just being harsh, it's just being honest. I think quite a telling sign was when he brought him off after, was it 50-odd minutes the other night? I think he finally saying that it wasn't working. He wasn't bringing anything to the team. Ahmad came on, done more in 10 minutes than Anthony did in probably all season. Let's be honest. He was showing the fight. He was getting stuck in. The link-up play was there. I noticed a little bit with him and Højlund and Garnacho and Bruno all linking up well. Before Anthony went off, there was none of that, to be honest, from what I noticed. And what I've noticed with Anthony as well, at Ajax, he was well known for taking full-backs on, sort of cutting inside, he doesn't seem to do any of that. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed that he seems to sort of always cut back all the time and just plays the safe ball, which I get. Most of our wingers, Rashford does the same. He doesn't seem to be in that mindset. Whether that's coming from the manager or whether that's just a lack of confidence, I honestly don't know. But yeah, I'd definitely start Ahmad. I definitely think he brings something more to the team than Anthony does, and I think the link-up play and the desire is a bit stronger personally. So yeah, personally, I'd go for Ahmad over Anthony, but some may disagree. But yeah, Ahmad every day of the week for me.
It really is a very interesting situation we find ourselves in at this moment in time, because it's tough, isn't it, Dan? We're sitting here trying to do a preview because obviously we want to put content out there. We want people to be able to have the chance to come on and have their say about what's going on with United. And like NT here saying Ahmad at least involves himself in the game, hasn't pulled any trees up really, which is true. But he's not been as bad as Anthony. He helps out defensively, so why not give him a chance? Meanwhile, some guy called Foul Throw Podcast is talking about Arne Slot. I know. Arne Slot will be the new Liverpool head coach, replacing Jurgen Klopp at the end of the season. It's according to who, Dan? Or as we're going to call you now, Dan Brizio Romano.
It's Fabrizio Romano that's done it, so I'd imagine that's confirmed. Orstina will be following, I'd say, in the next few minutes.
In the next few minutes. It's like
they're always really close, aren't they? Yeah, they're always really close.
So, well, I mean, it's up there. We might as well throw that in there. Has anyone got any idea?
Never heard of him.
Number one, who this geezer is and if he's any good?
I've heard of him. No idea what he's like. Again, he's a bit like Ten Hag coming from the Dutch league. Be very interesting.
Do you know what I love the most about this announcement? There's a certain Jamie Carragher that sat there last year and said that bringing players and managers from Holland doesn't work.
Exactly.
And that he's bound to fail. So let's see what he says about this appointment, because he went straight at Martinez for his height, and he's never stopped at Ten Hag since he's been here. Did he do an interview after the first 3 games, saying that his future was already in doubt or something like that? So yeah, I think that's fantastic. I'm sure it'll be completely different.
Yeah,
there you go.
Very interesting. There we go. Might actually be good news for United. Carragher didn't seem so fond of him. So there's at least that. Again, it's one of those, isn't it? But he's certainly not somebody that we know of. I mean, Jurgen Klopp we'd heard of, obviously coming from Dortmund, as he did. So, yeah, very, very interesting to see how that works on. Here we go. What's this?
Oh, I hope this is true.
I mean, that would be a thing.
That would be sensational. Yeah, going back to the Ahmad point, I would start Ahmad over Anthony, and I'll just elaborate on Matt's point about the forwards. And we'll touch on this later with Rashford as well, I imagine. This is not just a Anthony thing or a Rashford thing or a Garnacho or Højlund thing. All the forwards are actually doing this. They're getting to the byline, and instead of whipping a crossing or getting to the byline and crossing, they're shooting, and they're picking the wrong decision. It's across the whole front three. And I'm now starting to wonder if it's a tactics choice, if it's the way Ten Hag's saying, do you know what, cutting and shoot instead? Because there was a big thing made out, and I think it was Anthony against Coventry City, could have played the ball inside to Dallo, who had made a run, an overlapping run, and he didn't. Garnacho did exactly the same thing at Sheffield United the other day. There's an overlapping run that he could pass, and he doesn't pass it. And the reason why I say we're touching it with Rashford later is because Rashford's done exactly the same thing, and there was 40,000 memes made of it. and put on Twitter. But every player's been doing this. But Ahmad hasn't been. He seems quite happy to link up the play a little bit, cut inside a little bit more, go wide, come deep, go into the middle. It's like he's a bit more free roam in that position, whether he's allowed to do that or not. That's what he seems to do, if that makes sense. And sometimes you need players to do that. You need players to just wander away from the position. If you can get away with it and we don't get it on the counter attack, absolutely fine. But sometimes you do need that. So I really want to see what Ahmad can do before the FA Cup final. Give him a chance to prove himself, put his name up for a chance on the team sheet. So yeah, I'd go with Ahmad as well, to be fair.
He should have been given a chance a lot sooner, I think.
Yeah, I find it interesting because Ten Hag's said it several times in his interviews. Deserves more minutes.
Exactly.
But then doesn't give him more minutes.
Yeah,
precisely. But then we was talking about it on another show. You're 3-0 up against Coventry, and you bring on 2 players. And I've moaned all season about his trust in the squad, etc. And they just struck away a 3-0 lead.
Yeah,
I can see why he's not wanting to commit to giving players a chance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, playing it safe.
Exactly.
Well, I've just been on my favourite website for finding out some information about these head-to-head games. It's great because it's such a good website. Every time I go on it, you end up finding stuff that you didn't know existed on it. And it's really good. I'll share it with you. It's mufcinfo.com. It is, honestly, it's a Bible. The guy that runs this, the level of effort he's had to put in to, number one, getting all this information, and number two, keeping it updated as he does. Just hats off to the geezer. It is absolutely unreal. But it has given me some very interesting stuff, because what I was trying to look for is, while we were talking about goals, I was wondering who it would be. There we go, boxes straight in there, knows the truth, good stuff.
I'm just going to jump in back. Have you seen what Simon's put before that we've got to decide whether it's going to be hidden or published? Because that would be an entirely different comment from Box, if that's the website he means. You'll have to check in the YouTube section.
I mean, yeah, possibly. Yeah, well, we'll see. Listen, we very much need to talk about the people that were scoring. That's what I was getting at. And it's really interesting because obviously Burnley were a very good side way back when. Do you know which manager has got the most matches against Burnley for Manchester United?
Is it Owen Coyle?
No, not for Burnley, for us, our manager, Man United manager.
Oh.
So who's managed us for the most games against Burnley?
Fergie, surely.
It's not going to be Fergie.
That's the obvious answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not by a long distance. It's Sir Matt Busby. Because all of the history that we sit there and talk about when it's us and Man United against Burnley, we're talking about all the stuff from Division 1, back in the old days when Bobby Charlton, for example, had most of the games against him. 29 appearances he had. But the reason, again, without going into some random history thing, I could talk for hours about this, but people will fall asleep. The reason I was getting to it was, of our current crop of players, what do you think is the most number of goals one of our current players has scored against Burnley in all of the time we've played them? Now, to help you, we have played against them in the Premier League 17 times. I think I saw there. Yeah, so 17 times in the Premier League, 9 times in the League Cup, 6 in the FA Cup, and 2 in the Test match. I didn't know we played cricket, but there we go. So what do you reckon? Which one of our current players has got the most, and who? How many, sorry?
Current players.
Well, I know it's not Fernandez because we played that game yesterday.
You're right, it's not. Fernandez only scored 1 against Burnley.
Yeah. I'll say Rashford.
Yeah, I'm thinking Rashford.
It's a good shout, NT. I could have thrown that one in. But that wouldn't have been my experience. That would have been the website and Matt Busby. But yes, you're absolutely right. That would have been a perfect time to have thrown it in. I'll get down to edit him later. You would think Rashford has scored 2. No, our top goal scorer, current, is only our 25th highest goal scorer against Burnley, full stop. It's Anthony Martial with 3. And he's done that in...
That's a great shout.
Yeah, absolutely. So 3 goals, but then he's on the website probably because he knows it. He's already said it's a great website. So he's probably found the bit and gone, could it be Martial? He decided to take that. Could it be Martial now? Hey.
I'm just glad he was on that website.
So, good job. Yes, absolutely. It was 3 and 6 he's managed. Beyond that, you've got Rashford with 2, Eriksen with 1, Fernandes with 1, Victor Lindelof, if you please, with 1, and of course, Super Scott McTominay with 1. And when you look at it that way, it just goes to show we don't get many goals against Burnley. So,
I can only remember one game against Burnley, and it was some bloke scored a ridiculously good volley and we lost. I can't remember his name. I want to say Robbie Blake. Sure somebody
remember the guy.
Sure somebody will be able to tell me, but it was a ridiculously good volley from like edge at box, and we lost. I think it might have been 1-0. That's literally the only memory of playing Burnley that I've got.
Yeah, he was a guy. That was the day. Is that home or away, Barry? It makes a difference. What do you mean with the goals, home or away? Bloody hell. Really? We're going to take it that far down? It's Michael Owen's debut. What a player he was. I'm not adept at navigating myself through this, but for you, Simon, I'm going to give it a go. Whilst I'm doing that, I want to know from you guys, first of all, your prediction for the game and who you think who's going to make it onto the score sheet.
I'll just jump in with this. Yeah. It was Robbie Blake, and we did lose 1-0. So, yeah, my memory's not that bad. But I'll let you go first, Matt, on the score and the goal scorers.
See, I hate score predictions, mate, especially at the minute. You can never predict anything. It always goes complete opposite. The optimistic me, I'll probably go. I'm going to go 3-1 United. I think we will win the game. I think we will score a few. Who will score? I don't know. I would say, will Rashford be back in the team? Will they put him straight back in? Will he not? He did say, I think he said today that he'll be back. Whether he'll start him or not, I don't know. I'm hoping Højlund can continue where he left off. We could do with him firing a little bit before the cup final. That could play a part. But yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 United and Højlund to definitely get on the score sheet.
Simon's gone for Burnley or a naughty word at Turf Moor. And I feel they were better on the road, 2-2. That's fair enough, because Andy did say they've got more points away than at home. I'm going to go for an absolute nightmare of a game. 2-1. Do you know what? I think Maguire's going to make it 3-3. It's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be absolutely buzzing.
I can confirm I found the information for you, Simon. You guys timed that perfectly. All 3 goals were away from home. All 3 goals were away from home. And fun fact, it was in 2017, 2018 and 2019, the 3 goals that he scored in a 2-0 win, a 1-0 win and a 2-0 win. So there you go. Those were the answers to your questions. I hope that helps. I mean, I don't know what difference that makes to you, but there you go. You got whatever it was you were going to come back with. There you are. It was away from home, which wouldn't help us today because we're at home, so you wouldn't have scored anyway. So never mind. Another stat fact from Opta Wall here. Burnley have won twice against us in Premier League, and obviously like that the second time more than we did first. Their last win being back in 2020 at Old Trafford, where we lost to New. I'm loving this little stat pack he's pulling out here. We'll have to get him to do this more often.
I haven't seen anything like it. It's flying.
Yeah, isn't it? Right, I want to talk to you about Spurs, not because I like Spurs or for any other reason, but I'm genuinely intrigued because they don't play on Saturday. So if we somehow manage to get the win tomorrow afternoon, we will be 4 points behind Spurs. Granted, Spurs will have 2 games in hand. So the question is really a very simple one. Do you think there is any chance, any hope? Is it worth having the hope? Bearing in mind this is Spurs, and Spurs do have a Spursy end of a season. Is there a chance that we could catch them and have a little scrap for 5th? Or has that ship sailed across the horizon, and it shouldn't really be something we worry about? What do you reckon, Matt?
Personally, I don't want to sound negative, but no is my answer. I think I think the gap's a bit too big now. Like I say, you're going to have 2 games in hand on us after tomorrow, even if we win. I think we've just made it hard for ourselves, to be honest. I think we've dropped far too many points. Spurs have been on a pretty decent run. Like you say, there's always that chance Spurs can fluff it. That's just what Spurs not generally tend to do. But I think with a limited number of games left, I just don't see it. I think United, I think the best we can probably hope for now is finishing 6th and just getting to the Europa League next season, to be honest. I'd love us to topple Spurs. Will we do it? Personally, I just can't quite see it, unfortunately. But there's still hope. You never know.
You do never know. Absolutely. I mean, I think I would agree with you in general, but it felt like a nice question to ask. Twillenberg straight up with a no. You know, but when you say, I'm waiting for the invite, he says, well, answers like that, Twillenberg. I'm joking. NT, Spurs have the most difficult end of the season and will still not overtake them. I think even if they're extra Spurs, they're going to lose the next 4 games. And if that happens, we will be in with a shout. And of course, we'd have to beat Newcastle at home, Brighton away, and hope Spurs lose most. Absolutely. I mean, it's doable. You know, that's why it's mathematically possible. But is it likely? I'd have to say, I think not. What do you reckon, Dan?
But when you asked the question backstage, I laughed and said no. Then I've had a look at the fixtures. Just don't know, you know. They've got Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool. And then they've got Burnley, who could possibly be fighting to stay up still. Then they've got Man City, all before playing Sheffield United on the last game of the season. So I don't think the issue might not be that Spurs pick up loads of points. The issue will probably be is can we pick up enough to catch them?
Yeah.
And just can't see it. The form this season's just not been there. I'll tell you what is... I think it's unlikely to happen, but I tell you what probably will end up happening now in our luck. 5th will get Champions League and we'll miss out just because did Spurs just get beat 4-0 by Newcastle as well? So they're not like
not long ago.
Yeah, that was the last game, I think. So they must be looking at them fixtures thinking, but Spurs turn up against City. They always seem to turn up against City. So I just think they'll have a little bit too much at the end.
It will be, again, very interesting to see. So there we go, really. I think we all know roughly where we're going to go with the Burnley game and where we are with that. So I don't really feel like there's too much point in flogging that particular horse. I suppose the last question we could ask about that would be, what do you reckon for Burnley? Do you think they are in with a shout of staying up? Which of the 2 do you think will be the ones to go down? Is it going to be Forest, Luton, or Burnley? Which 2 do you see joining Sheffield United back in the Championship?
I think a lot of it will depend on this. Is it a 4-point deduction that Forest have got? I think they've appealed it as well. So I think the outcome of that might play a big part. I think if that stands, I think Forest will go down along with Luton and Sheffield.
Did Everton stay with 4? Or has theirs been reduced?
Everton's had 8 in total. I think theirs is all finished now.
Okay.
I think they got a 10 reduced to 6, and then they got an extra 2 on top.
I think Everton will stay up, though. I don't think Everton I think Everton will manage it. I think, like I say, I think the 3 for me, I think it'll be Luton, Sheffield, and Forest if the 4-point deduction stands. That's my bottom 3.
It's interesting. I was reading about Sean Dyche and obviously everything that he's done when he was at Burnley and how well he had them drilled. Because although they were sort of in this situation anyway, they were always kept up beyond their budget, really. You know, it was unexpected. They looked like they should have dropped each time down, and they haven't. And yet here they are now, looking like this could be their season. Is it less of an achievement for them if, in effect, they're only saved by the fact that Nottingham Forest could potentially lose their Premiership status based on the fact that financially they weren't quite solid?
I'm a weird one this because I think I'm going to get pelters for this if Forest fans see it. Forest caused their own downfall by signing 26 players that they knew they couldn't afford, and then let's be honest, I rate Morgan Gibbs White. I laughed when they paid 45 million for him, but he's actually turned out to be quite a good player. But it's stuff like that. Nobody else would paid 45 million for him, and they went and paid it. So they sort of brought it on themselves. I feel a bit more sorry for Everton because they seem to be talking to the Premier League a lot about what their issues were, and they got hit with much heftier punishments for trying to be cooperative than Forest, who was a little bit more mischievous if you read it. I actually think Luton will stay up over the pair of them because I think they're only a point behind, and I think the runnings. I would say there's a couple of games there where the teams have not got a lot to play for, whereas they have, so they might just have a little bit of an edge. So I fancy them to stay up for the sake of the Premier League. Everton and Forest can't go down. I know Everton are probably safe now, but if Forest go down off a point deduction, I think it's going to cause a massive, massive can of worms, especially with certain team having 115 charges. If they end up relegated off their single charge, I just can't imagine the lawsuits that could come from it, if that makes sense. And let's be honest, Forest have got to be careful. The way they're talking about referees and stuff like that, at the end of the day, referees are human, whether you think they're doing a good job or not, they're human. So they're going to take into account that they've accused my fellow professional of being biased and cheating. So next time a Forest player goes over in the box, there's that human element of, can I give this? Do I want to cause more trouble? Mike Dean said it on Sky Sports. He once didn't give a penalty or something like that, or didn't send a ref over to the monitor because he didn't want him to have more hassle. And there is a human element to refereeing, whether you like it or not. So they've got to be really careful. But I think the three that will go down will be Sheffield United, Burnley, and Forest. I think Luton will stay up.
Very interesting point. And it's a lovely thing here from Simon for him to have put in here, which is, I'll tell you why I chat on channels like yours, because you're not arrogant and you're honest. City fan channels are embarrassing. I'm blue. Humour works as well. And then he meant to put SD out. So thank you, Simon. It's what we work hard on. That's all we want to be is honest and just natural chat. You know, it's not about clickbait. It's not about trying to throw people on to watch it. If 10 people watch the show, if 10,000 people watch the show, that's not what we're after here. We just want good, honest chat about football, a bit of a laugh, a bit of a joke, different opinions. And, you know, we all go home at the end of the day feeling like we've been heard. And that's really all it should ever be about. You know, it's just football at the end of the day, which I never thought I'd ever say because it's much more important than that, as we well know. But there we go. And NT saying City are like the bad guy in a cartoon walking around doing a cheery whistle, knowing full well they're guilty and hoping nobody notices. Absolutely that. And again, if you haven't already, I've been having a look at the likes. We're on 5 at the minute, so bump them up if you can, please, guys. If you sat there watching, just click on that thumb for us. That would be absolutely superb. So, I mean, I suppose my take on the Forest thing, it annoys me. The money in the Premiership does annoy me, and it annoys me, like, again, with everything that's happened with the FA Cup and the replays and everything that was going on there. It still just feels like it is all just weighted towards the top clubs. And I'm fully aware that we are one of the top clubs. And so therefore we very much come under that umbrella. But it just feels incredibly annoying, disappointing, and just debilitating, really, that we're turning up here to watch a product. And it's a team like Everton who are honest. it's a team like, I mean, we were honest about ours as well. Where's our points deduction? Why didn't we get anything? Why is nobody taking anything off of us? If we're doing the same sort of thing that Everton have done, why have we not had anything taken off? I mean, if you're going to do it, you might as well do it this season because it ain't going to make no bleeding difference, is it?
Ours was UEFA though, wasn't it? So ours was the Champions League. We failed.
Well, yeah, true.
We failed the Champions League's one, and it was, I think it was from a few years ago, and the new owners noticed when they was going through the books, and that's why it was reported. So it is confusing. We've seen reports today. I can't remember his name. Is it Masterson or someone like that? Richard Masterson said that the City one's going to be dealt with in the near future. How near? Is it going to be the end of the season? Or are they dragging their feet on purpose to get to the end of the season?
He said that a few months ago. He said exactly the same thing a few months ago.
I was just going to say, some people have no idea what that is. Connor, for example, for those who don't know, Connor is the person who owns the channels. He will say to me things like, I mean, he sent me a voice message about an hour ago saying, I'll talk to you in a sec about something. Now, for him, a sec could be anywhere between 4 hours. I mean, it can be 3 to 5 business days. Shortly, not speaking to a week. So, these people that say it should be done soon, like soon is such a terrible unit of time. It really is, because it can't be picked on. It really
I'm sure Forests were heard on the 24th of April as well. So they've actually sat that appeal. So they're just waiting for the conclusion on whether they're going to get points back or not. So this is the other thing with the relegation battle. It could very much go that Forest get 3 points back and they'll be on 29. And
the thing is, people want to talk about VAR as being the thing that's killing football. This kills it more.
Yeah, this should be done at the start of every season and the end of every season.
It drags on, doesn't it?
Here looking at this at the end of a season, thinking like that's a worse betrayal than any VAR goal being scratched off.
Mm-hmm.
To be in a situation where you think you're safe and then, no, I'm relegated.
I always go back to the West Ham one when they illegally signed Tevez and Mascherano, and they knew it was wrong. It was against the Premier League rules, and they waited till the end of the season to sort it. Mm-hmm. And I think West Ham ended up paying Sheffield United like so many millions as an apology. But Sheffield United would never have gone down if West Ham didn't have Tevez and Mascherano. In fact, I think Tevez scored a goal against Man United that kept West Ham up. So they've got to learn. Well, there should be lessons learned. They've got to sort this stuff quicker. Like the fact with Cities has gone on for what, a decade?
So they're actually putting time. I've noticed putting time frames on like Forest and things. I think I read on Sky Sports saying that they should know the outcome by the middle of next week. So they're actually
they want it done before the end of the season.
Yeah. So why not time frame on the City one?
It affects let's throw a hypothetical out that tomorrow they announce that Forest have got 3 points back. Mm-hmm. And Burnley go into the game against Man United knowing that Forest have just been given 3 points back. How deflating is that going to be for the team?
Just messes the whole season.
Yeah, they've just got to find better ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definite work that needs to be done there, and hopefully it will be. Right, final topic of the day. My God, it keeps going. It keeps going. It's honestly like a Duracell battery. This conversation. So, I mean, as nice as Simon was to us, this comment is one that Dan starred, and it kind of takes us to the topic we wanted to look at. So, give Rashford his passport, drive him to the airport and get rid of him. Anthony deserves at least one more season. Shape up or ship out. Simple for me. And the reason why we were sort of highlighting that as a point is because obviously Marcus Rashford has been on Twitter again, talking to I can't remember who it was, but a site has basically backed him and said, this needs to stop. It's all abuse and it's not good enough. This guy's having to put up with a lot. And obviously Rashford has put on there, thank you for the support. It is abuse and enough is enough. Now, I saw what you reposted earlier on as well, Dan, which was a bit about David Beckham. And it's really making me think, because when David Beckham lashed out at Diego Simeone, like the world ended. I mean, when you watch the Beckham documentary back, it's pretty unbelievable when you relive what he went through. I mean, we went through it live. And I remember it being quite bad, but you're just seeing it off of the papers. But when you actually talk to him and see how much that affected his life, it's quite something. And I just feel like we're losing a lot in our fandom at the moment. Just everything seems to be changing to a point where everything is an argument, everything's something bad.
Mhm.
And I just don't know, if I'm brutally honest, what is happening with football fans nowadays. Because you look at Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire was, and still is, absolutely maligned. Again, I've said it a million times. He puts up a picture of himself getting married with his wife, and still there's abuse on there. We've hit a point where people just don't know where the line is. Well, they do know where the line is, but they just don't care. So we've hit a point where it is absolutely acceptable to be an absolute git online and face no repercussions for that whatsoever. And I guarantee you, the people that say these things would absolutely shrivel up in front of him himself if he was stood there in front of them to say it. And I've always been a big believer, if it's not something you would say to them to their face, you probably shouldn't be shouting it out on social media. It just makes you feel like you're Billy Biggs just because you've got a big screen in front of you all. And I just find it really difficult, boys. I really do, because people are taking things too far once again. They were terrible to Harry Maguire. They're now at a point where they're saying he needs to deal with it the way Harry Maguire's dealt with it, as if it's okay, as if the abuse is just part and parcel of football. And I don't think it should be. I think people have got a responsibility to be better online, to be better with how they're talking and how they're treating people. And it needs to be, number one, based on fact, and number two, it needs to be based on football. Now, Marcus Rashford missed a penalty for England that cost us our place, I think, in the World Cup, I think it was. And the abuse that he got, along with Saka, wasn't just you missed a penalty in a football match. It was immediately turned round to the colour of their skin. It was immediately turned round to race. And things get brought into the argument that don't matter. It's one thing to go, how have you missed a penalty? Or your penalty miss has just cost us the World Cup. It has. He knows that. You don't need to tell him that. But fair play, if that's something you really feel you need to get off your chest, it's factual. But when you start having to go at people for the colour of their skin, it becomes a drama. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's what we see a lot of at the moment. But as Box says here, I've seen Bruno get a lot of flack this season from United fans. And I think this is kind of where we are. Box says even City fans are fed up with Rashford. Well, they're not, though. I'm seeing a lot of other fans from other clubs basically saying that we're a joker fan base. And we're a joker fan base because the behaviour isn't one of let's protect our players anymore. The disconnect between the fans and the players, I've never seen it wider. To the point that you get these young players coming in, Mainu. Just imagine what it's going to be like in 2 years' time if Kobbie Mainu does not maintain the level of performance he's managed to do. He'll be, what, 18 now, he'll be 20, 21 years old, and he will be consigned to the scrap heap and had a go at purely because he hasn't managed to maintain a level of playing. So I'm really worried about the way that we are, and I say we've got a massive fan base, but I'm really worried about the way people are talking and the fact that they don't have the ability, it seems, to differentiate between criticism and abuse. Now, there are people that are saying he's not playing well enough, and that is fully acceptable. Fully acceptable. Like here, PJ saying Rashford's clearly walking. Well, he is. I mean, nobody has been watching the last 5 or 6 games and going, core blimey, Marcus Rashford looks like he's on an 100-metre sprint. I'll grant you that. That's a fact. Is anybody really sitting here and thinking about why Marcus Rashford isn't doing that? Is it a manager? And is that our job? I don't know. That's where I want to throw it over to you guys. Is it our job? Should we be bothered about that? Am I getting a bit too bleeding heart? Am I sitting here thinking to myself, maybe I'm expecting better from people when really that's never what it's been. What's the future here? Because we are such a divided fan base. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So where do we stand on this one, boys?
I think it's been like that for a while now. I think not just in terms of players. I think even like since all this ownership, all these protests started, I think it stems personally from then. There's always been that sort of divide between the fan base. Some people agree, some people disagree. But I think when it comes down to the players, in particular Rashford, I think, like you say, people don't sort of differentiate between criticism and abuse. I think at the minute, criticism was one thing, absolutely fine. I'm sure Rashford can handle the criticism. I'm sure it doesn't really bother him. But I think when it goes to a certain level, I think, like you say, we're all human. Like the referees were saying, there's always a human aspect to it. It's not just all about the football. I think I touched on it a bit last time I was on the show as well when we was talking about Rashford. The fact that you don't know his reasons outside of football, away from football, personal life, family life. Is there things going on outside that nobody knows about? Because we won't know anything about that. We can only go off what we see on the football pitch week in, week out. But I think these days it does go a little bit too far. And I think, like I said the other week, social media is becoming quite a big problem in modern day football. And I think Rashford, he's one of them. He does seem to struggle with it a little bit, which I suppose you would do. I think he does love the club. There's no doubting he loves the club. He's come through the academy, made his debut, got on a high, had a great season last season, and this season has just been one of them where it's just not been quite there. And I think some fans understand it. Is there a reason? Is there not a reason? But yeah, the abuse, I think, not just him. I think a few players like Maguire you've touched on. I think Bruno's had it a few times and a few occasions this season as well. It does go one step too far, and and there's no repercussions for it. Like you say, people behind the keyboard can say one thing, but would they say it to the face? Probably not.
It's really interesting. I mean, Buck saying, I do think players should stay off social media, though, regardless. Too much praise, adulation online can also make players' heads too big. PJ immediately throws that back with the players don't even run their social media accounts. Depends on who the player is. They'll still have access to it and have the ability to get on there should they really need to. Simon throwing out, yeah, well, thank you. This is where a true debate comes about. But on this occasion, I agree with you. So there we go. That's nice. I love it when people agree with me. It doesn't happen that often, as you would think here. And absolutely with this, no votes or any form of abuse or discrimination there from Swadumba. And on this one, I may be off the mark with this, but I think the fact football talk is so saturated on the internet for people to stand out, they have to go to extremes to get noticed. And I mean, this is one of the things we spoke about it earlier on when we spoke about this channel. We know there are channels out there that will sensationalize every single thing that happens at Manchester United. When the Mason Greenwood thing happened, Connor and I made a decision immediately that we just weren't going to talk about it. Because, number one, what's the point? Everybody heard what they heard and saw what they saw and knows what went on, and they've made up their own mind about that. Even the fan base is even divided over that. And that blows my mind. I mean, it blows my mind that there is any human being out there walking this earth that can listen to that and go, yeah, that's a player I want to play for us in our football club. But again, be heard. It's your opportunity. What I find bizarre is that you do have these places, Dan, that do just want to get all of the glory, all of the fame. And we're not interested in that. If we get loads of people watching, but we want it to be natural. We want the community to be a good community, not one that's just sitting there chatting about all of the rubbish that seems to come out and abusing players. We'll criticise where it's gone wrong and we'll praise where it's gone right. Look at Onana. He's the perfect example. He had an awful start for Manchester United. Took his bags at this rate because he's going down the Massimo Taibbi route. And then he went off to AFCON, came back. I wouldn't change him for the world right now. I'm willing to give him a lot more time because he's showing us what it was that we bought him for. Dan, I know you started a comment that you might want to bring up as well. But what's your take on this situation?
So I'm one of the fortunate few that I feel like I can comment on it a little bit more than others, which is why I've started that comment. I'll come back to it. It's frustrating for me because I remember a time when you would say to a Man United fan, and Liverpool fans do it all the time, and it winds me up, but it shows support. You say to a Liverpool fan, best left back in the world, Robertson. Best goalkeeper in the world, Alisson. Best centre back in the world, Virgil van Dijk. And that used to be Man United fans. Even when we weren't winning, best centre back in the world, Vidic. Even if we don't win the league, it's Vidic. Don't care. Because it was just pure support. And the reason I like the David Beckham thing is David Beckham was massive for me in supporting Man United in general. And I can just always remember, I can remember it happening when I was growing up because I was only little. And then just the way he would repeat, if it wasn't for the Man United fan base being there, he wouldn't have got through it because he had a protective bubble around him at the club where the club just was, we don't listen, we back our players. Irrelevant of the issue, the problem, we keep it in-house. And that's the way it was. It's changed now to the point where the confusing thing for me and for a lot of people seems to be what's the line between criticism and abuse? If you're bringing a player up on your channel, I'm not going to mention any channel in particular, just on your channel. If you've got a channel, you watch a channel, if you're bringing up Marcus Rashford every single show, whether he's played, whether he's not played, whether he's been out and bought a bag, whether he's got a parking ticket, if you're targeting him negatively 5, 6, 7 times a week, and some of those weeks he's not even been on a football pitch, like against Sheffield United, he wasn't on the football pitch, but he was still targeted. You are targeting him for abuse. And you've got to be aware of the people you're speaking to, the age group you're speaking to. If you've got 5 million followers and they're of the ages of 12 to 20, they don't understand the world yet. They don't understand that we shouldn't be abusing players and targeting them every week. I had this same argument with Maguire that criticism was fine, but abuse wasn't. Was it death threats and bomb threats at his wedding? The same we had Woodward. I had very similar when the protests were happening. Go to his house? Absolutely not, because that's where his family lives. And that is completely separate to football. I get that you might not like the way he's ran the club and you might have issues with the way he's done stuff in the club. It's not his family's fault. It's not Harry Maguire's wife's fault. It's not Rashford's mum's fault. I've seen a lot of people, and me and Dan Bateman's had a bit of a disagreement on this today because Dan's been chased a bit for his opinion on it, which again, you're entitled to your opinion on it. If you're criticizing, absolutely fine. If you're then pushing past criticism, so one exchange on Twitter earlier, and it was Rashford's playing the victim card. So somebody put, well, no, he's saying he doesn't want to be abused while he's a cancer to the club. That's not abuse. And they go in, no, it's criticism. You're calling someone a cancer to Manchester United. That is abuse. No matter which way you phrase it, which way you look at it, it's abuse. And that's what we've got to stop. Now, I've got some stats to back Rashford up here. So we touched on this a few weeks ago. Rashford's got more goals and more assists than Garnacho this season. But you wouldn't think it. He's played less games, but you wouldn't think it with the way the attitude is towards his performance. Now, the criticism is completely just in some of what we've seen. His jogging, is what looks like lackluster. He's not really into the game. But you go back to 1920 season, 22 goals, 12 assists. 2021, 21 goals, 5 assists. 2021, 2022, he had a broken back and carried on playing for the club. He got 5 goals, 2 assists. We finished 6th. So when Rashford didn't turn up, we didn't turn up. Then you go on to 22, 23, 30 goals, 11 assists. We finished 3rd. This season, 8 goals, 6 assists. We're in 6th because nobody else has stepped up. So it's all well and good saying, "Oh, Rashford's doing rubbish. He's not playing well." So who stepped up in that's world class to take the team to the next level? Because it very much looks like if Rashford doesn't step up, we finish 6th. And when Rashford does step up with goals, we finish 3rd, 2nd, 3rd. So, and you can't. Rashford was 23 when he broke his back. And I can never remember some people on the internet going, well, he's only 23. Give him a break. He definitely wasn't doing that. They was treating him like he was a full-grown professional footballer of 29 years old. So for me, it's really frustrating. I've got in numerous arguments, and it's not even an argument, it's just a debate. And it's more, if you're going to call out Rashford for his performances this season, there's only really one player you can point to that's been better than him and more consistent, or maybe two, more consistent, and that's Dalot and Fernandez. Nobody else has been overly consistent this season. Mm-hmm. Everyone else has been up and down like yo-yos. Garnacho's got holes in his games that should be better. Ahmad's got holes in his games that should be better. Rasmus Højlund's got holes in his game that should be better. But you see what you see happening to them on social media isn't abuse. It's just criticism. It's, Garnacho could pick a better pass. He could get to the byline and cross. What we see when it's Rashford is completely different. We're at Maguire levels now. If you saw the one against Chelsea where there's the meme or gif of him jogging for about 10 seconds. But if you play the full minute, he sprints from side to side 3 times before he's jogging in the middle because he's tired, because he's just sprinted from side to side. And this is what makes me laugh the most. Half of these people behind the keyboard saying stuff like this wouldn't be able to cover a tenth of what he covers in a football match. Mm-hmm. They'd be knackered after one sprint. And they just don't understand that to be a top athlete, you've got to have a high mentality. And you can't have that all the time. You really can't. We've seen better players than Marcus Rashford struggle with mental health. And people say, it's a new thing. It's definitely not a new thing. I can remember one of the greatest footballers I've ever watched struggle with mental health, and that was Paul Gascoigne. And he was constantly struggling when he was playing with his mental health. And it's something that we should be looking at outside of football. I was talking to John Commode, actually, who was in the comments earlier on. I was saying that he shouldn't have to. Maybe it would be a good idea if he came off social media for a little bit, cleansed himself of the internet, of all this, what he's seeing. It'd be better for Man United. But there's no justification for what we're seeing. And my frustration comes with it. In my opinion, there's a set of people that are targeting him because he had the audacity to call out what he felt was unjust. And it's happened with Bruno, it happened with Maguire, it happened with Fred, it happened with McTominay, and it's the same people pushing it. And I don't know whether it's clickbait, I don't know whether it's just poor opinion, but it very much comes across as we're going to rinse this because it works. It gets millions of traffic to our channel and it works. And then my question would be, who's next? Who's next season? Because there's been somebody new every year. Who's next? So is it going to be Kobe Mainoo next season if he doesn't step up to being a world-class footballer in one season? Is it going to be Garnacho? Because then he'll be 21, or he should be getting a goal and assist every game. But be really, really careful with what we're doing with these footballers because they're human.
I think it's one of those where, I mean, you're talking about the Garnacho and who's going to be next, and this is exactly it. Because, and this is what makes me giggle. I mean, like, we know, Dan, that you're a fan who joined United early on in the sort of the 90s. So the vast majority of your time as a Manchester United fan has been positive and full of trophies, and we are in a generation now. Let's not forget the generation before. I mean, I can't include myself in that really, even though it was 1987 when I started supporting Manchester United. I hadn't gone through the 26 years of not winning the league title and the sort of the negativity that had come from that. But we were used to the fact that Man United were also Rans or nearly theirs or almost theirs. And, we were nearly there with Leeds, who, are 3-0 down to QPR. What a shame. And in the following season, after we nicked their best player and turned him into an even better one, we finally started winning. And the problem is that we just relate everything now with winning. We're Man United, we should be winning. We're Man United, we should be winning. They forget the fact that if you take away the absolute anomaly, which is Sir Alex Ferguson, we'd be nowhere near Liverpool. When he joined us, the job was take Liverpool off their perch. And he did that. Manchester United are comparable and can have an argument with Liverpool fans because Sir Alex Ferguson put us in that position. Now, obviously, the people that went before did a very good job as well, but he had to add to that and caught up and made up the difference. And it's horrific for me that we've just got, for me, a whole load of fans who are just so brought up on the fact that we've won everything They can't handle the fact that we're not winning anymore. And as a result, they are just pushing that against the fact that we're not winning with players that aren't necessarily performing. And all of a sudden, they're ending up in problems. So, for example, John Commode saying here, I always remember Villa FA Cup 22, Rashford looked lost as if he was playing a different game to everybody else. Now, I don't think he's looked that bad, but he has had a poor season. Nobody's suggesting he's had a great season. There's not a single person, I don't think, on this panel that is sitting there saying Marcus Rashford shouldn't receive any criticism because he's been the best player we've had this season. Absolutely not one of us. And as you say here, the abuse line can be different for everyone. As Dan says, certain things are very wrong, like cancerous. Whereas if someone is saying he's been rubbish several times, some would say that's abuse. Well, it depends. Look at Anthony Martial. If we think about how we talk about Anthony Martial, even on this channel, the general gist of what we come up with Anthony Martial isn't that he's rubbish. It isn't that he's a poor footballer. It's that he's just not available. He's never around. And that's a fact. Where's he been this season? How many games does he have? Not very many. So it's not abuse. We're not trying to say get rid of Anthony Martial because he's a crap footballer. Get rid of Anthony Martial because we don't want him.
But we wouldn't do a show every single week, every other day, going at Martial because he's injured. Mm-hmm. So once it's absolutely fine to say, you know what, Rashford's he's not been very consistent this season. He's been a bit poor in games. You move on. But to then, oh, he's rubbish. He's rubbish. Every single show, every single comment, and it's just repetition of you digging that one player. Like I can remember examples, and I've seen them on Twitter where stuff was happening in games, and they were going, Rashford's fault. Oh, it's Rashford's fault that Onana's dropped the ball in the net. Yeah, it's Rashford's fault. Okay, cool. That's when it's abuse, because it's not anything to do with football anymore or criticism. It's just, what can we hit on Rashford? Can we bring Rashford into it? John mentioned this to me earlier, actually. It'd be interesting to get Matt's point of view on this. Like, that's a perfectly fine opinion to have if you're going to go, maybe Rashford needs to look at his friendship groups. It sounds really weird, but last year I didn't like my daughter's friendship groups at school. So she's moved them, and she's loads better for it, if that makes sense. Maybe that's what he needs to do, is he needs to look at his friendship groups. But then to message his mum and bring up this, do you know what I mean? That's your narrow abuse again.
Yeah. So when you get his family involved, it is a big issue. Like, what's it got to do with his mum, his brother, his sister, whoever? You know what I mean? It's like they're not the ones on the football pitch playing the football. Again, like you were saying, the criticism's absolutely fine, but there's got to be a level to it. And at the minute, everyone's going way above that level, like way above that level, and it's you do feel for him in that regard. Like I say, we all want to see Rashford producing on the pitch. There's nothing more than anyone wants to see, you know what I mean? But to go that far and the level of abuse he's getting, the thing is, doing that, it's not going to make him play any better. I don't think fans are understanding that from that perspective. You abusing him is not going to bring him back tomorrow and he score a hat-trick and play like his best ever game.
Imagine David Beckham coming back from the World Cup and being abused by Man United.
Exactly, yeah.
Honestly, it blows my mind. I mean, what NT's just put here, he'd also mentioned in the start comment from Dan as well, which is, it's multifaceted, but at the end of the day, it's got out of hand. Rashford is the most abused athlete in the world, according to a university study. I mean, that is crazy. And the tweet that you actually put out there and reposted, Dan, was talking about how David Beckham always said the only reason he was able to carry on was because the Man United fans never turned on him. When the world turned on David Beckham, when England turned on David Beckham, Ferguson, us, the lot of us just went, he's ours. We did it with Wayne Rooney. We did it with Ronaldo. We were a bit tricky with Ronaldo and Rooney one because they were both in our team at the same time. We're like, oh, which way do
How
we go?
got through that was incredible, wasn't it? Because it was literally, both, everybody wanted to keep them. It's like split down the middle, and we somehow did it. The thing I would say is, there's certain people out there that Marcus Rashford could score a hat-trick in the FA Cup final and we win 3-0, and people would come away from that game and they wouldn't be going, amazing, we've won an FA Cup, Rashford's saved our season, this, that. They'd be going, they're going to keep him now. I can't believe it, they're going to keep him. and they'd be more annoyed by the fact that he'd done it than happy he'd done it. And that's the issue with football for me.
Yeah.
We're at a point where people want to see players fail because it's better for clickbait than actually succeed because it isn't their version of a team. And do you know what tops it all off for me? It literally could just be down to that Ten Hag's changed his tactics a little bit and Rashford just can't do it. Mm-hmm. And it could be that simple.
Could be. And again, it's really interesting with what John Commode was saying here, which was something that Andy Mitten mentioned, saying perhaps Rashford doesn't surround himself with the right people, whether it's a change of club or people around him, one has to give. But the whole point of it is that whether that's right or whether that's wrong, how we choose to talk about our players and how we choose to behave with them and how we choose to interact with them matters. I mean, the fact that Dan's saying perhaps we should just they should just come off of social media. This is the problem for me, because this is the same argument as saying, well, perhaps women shouldn't wear short skirts when they go out on the streets in the middle of the night. Like, they should be able to wear what they want, and men should just control themselves and not be in a situation where they feel like they have a right to do it just because someone's wearing something slightly skimpy. It's not the way that the internet should be. It's arse about face. We're sitting there going, well, yes, you are the victim there, but actually, why don't you just come off of it and then you haven't got to worry about it? Now, that works in some respects. I can remember watching Celebrity Big Brother when I was younger. Katie Hopkins came on. I just turned the telly off. I didn't go on Twitter and start going, bloody Katie Hopkins, I don't want to watch this crap. How dare you? Because what's the point? For me, I just turn the telly off because there's about 999 other channels to watch, all paint dry, all of which would have been preferable. So it wasn't a problem. But there's people that don't have the ability to do that. They see it and just go, this is going to be my sport. They must feel so bad about themselves. But Box makes an interesting point. United fans have often singled out players. Giggs had a few boo boys in 2003. Fletcher was singled out as the Scot who plays for his father. Yeah, there were people that said that. And Nani did have a little bit of rough treatment as well. He also mentioned about Jones and Smalling. How can you forget about Phil Jones? He's a guy whose mental health really did take a beating. But you think of some of them, people saying that, mental health is new. It's not. Try saying that to Justin Fashanu, who couldn't find a world where he was able to come out, so therefore ended up hanging himself, or Gary Speed, who seemed like all was well, and then it wasn't. Mental health in football is a massive thing. And I think when it's gone wrong, when your criticism about Marcus Rashford comes down to the fact that he's doing an interview and what he's wearing and what his appearance is, and it's not coming down to the fact, it's almost as if we're jealous of the amount of money that's been earned. And it surprises me, because we're the ones that are giving it to them. We're the ones that go off and make sure they have all of this cash. And I think the biggest one for me was how we lauded him for what he did during lockdown, how he managed to single-handedly battle the government and get them to realise, because I was one of the teachers there that was supporting that, signing it and sharing it everywhere. I wanted children to be fed during the holidays because I knew they weren't necessarily going to all get their food at home. And he was lauded for that. That's why he got the MBE. And then the next season, when he's dropped slightly, the conversation isn't, oh, Marcus Rashford's not doing very well. It's perhaps he should stop trying to feed children and maybe he should get on with playing football.
Yeah, that's the season he had a broken back.
Probably from trying to carry the nation's children on his back and make sure they're fed. My back could break.
The reason I started, which one was it? This one. Because I've had quite a few fascinating discussions in regards to this today. Now, I like Paddock. It's one of my favourite channels to watch outside of this channel. But it's all well and good, Stephen Howson saying university to study, etc. And I've seen that he's tried to back Rashford quite a lot, and I'm glad that he's backed Rashford quite a lot. But then you go and look how he was with Maguire. He is not the person that can stand there and then call out what's happening with Rashford because of how he treated Maguire when Maguire wasn't playing well. Because that was not criticism, that was abuse. Because it was every show, it was every mention of Maguire. There was nothing to do with. It wasn't about football anymore. Maguire just needed to leave because he was a stain on the club. And when you start to spit that narrative and say those things, you sort of lose the right to then It's weird to take it back to decisions in football, but me and John had an argument about penalties. I said that Jota one against Newcastle wasn't a penalty, and he said it was a penalty, and there was something really similar a couple of weeks later. And you have to sort of keep the same opinion, because you can't suddenly change because of tribalism or because it's your team or whatever. You have to keep your head screwed on. So it's the same with this sort of stuff. You can't be backing Rashford now, but then wasn't backing Harry Maguire, McTominay, Fred, etc. You've got to sort of keep the same line in the sand. The line in the sand is criticism is absolutely fine. If a player deserves to be criticised, so be it. Like, nobody can be special all year. There's only the very, very best that are consistent for 38 games a season, and that's why they win World Player of the Year and stuff like that. But it's got to stop at abuse when it goes past the realms of football. And that is what it has been for quite a lot of what I can remember from Rashford, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And yeah, should you bring that up for a reason?
Yeah, just because it was the next one on the list, but is right. Is right.
No, absolutely, spot on. And like, I mean, NT puts it here. I used to watch the channel that shan't be named, just so we know that we're not talking about Paddock there at all. We love Paddock.
Love Paddock.
That shan't be named. When I first started watching United channels, within a couple of months I unsubscribed and never looked back. It's a cesspit for the worst of fandom. I felt exactly the same, and I followed the same guy that you'll be talking about as well, thinking that this would be a world of all things sensible. And eventually you realise that the people that surround that channel aren't necessarily the people that you want to be involved with, because their attitude is all reactionary and based on just negative views and effectively just being horrible. Now, I've said this on this channel 1,000,001 times. Do I want the Glazers in charge of this football club? No, I don't. But I have never, ever agreed with the fact that the lead part of our chanting when it comes to getting the Glazers out is chanting for Joel Glazer to die. Like, I cannot get behind that as a chant, because how do you wish death on someone? Like, don't get me wrong, he's an absolute git and he shouldn't be anywhere near our football club. But, you know, can we not just wish him off to a retirement home somewhere? You know, just do we have to put him 6 feet under? I mean, you know, it's like the whole thing is just an attitude and the way in which we're choosing to behave towards people. It's scary sometimes, and then we wonder why it is we're in the situation we're in.
Yeah, I had something
constructive. Sorry, yeah.
No.
I was just going to say, it's nothing constructive anymore these days. It's these very few people that come with anything constructive that actually makes any sense. Like, criticising the footballing ability is one thing, but that they don't exist anymore for me. Constructive criticism does not exist with a lot of people, especially United fans.
I made a comment I won't go into politics, but I made a comment about a certain person in politics the other day, and it was basically a question, and it just went mad, and I got 1 million inboxes on TikTok and stuff like that. And it basically just saying that the universal credit system is not fit for purpose, and people, even though they work 40 hours a week, still have to claim universal credit, and minimum wage should be upped. And there were people putting underneath, yeah, he just needs to die. Yeah, maybe just unelect him. You know what I mean? Like, if we could just unelect him instead, that'd be fantastic. You know, that's far enough. Do you know what I mean? And it's that OTT reaction. That, like I say, I mean, we could go back and get your Mbappe view and whack that on TikTok. I'm sure that'll get us a few comments.
Which one's sorry?
The Mbappe one about not being world class. Was it not world class?
I believe the question was, which player is vastly overrated?
I'm sure if we took a clip of that show, because I said Hazard, so that would definitely get some reactions. You said Mbappe, and didn't Bain say Phil Foden?
Yes.
So, can you imagine posting that now?
Oh, mate, the City fans will have a meltdown. That's an absolute fact because of the Foden.
We'd get so much traffic, it'd be unreal.
But that's the whole point, and it's not about that for us, as I keep saying. It's absolutely not. Our job is just to sit here and have these debates. You know, the simple fact is that we'll agree about things. I don't entirely agree with everything that John Commode puts in the chat, but there is never a moment when John Commode have a bad word to say about each other, because we have a chat about it. He says his thing, I say my thing. I tell him he's an idiot. He tells me I'm a prat, and then We shake hands and go. Well, we don't shake hands anymore. He's a long way away. We do it virtually. But, we just go, yeah, fair point, mate. And we crack on because at the end of the day, he's my mate. I'm not going to sit there and lose a pal over the fact that he's got a slightly different, opinion to me. And that's what I just find incredibly, incredibly strange. And as we're saying here, according to stats, that's what gets the most clicks. It's what the game is about. Things like this. Why do lots of them have thumbnails of themselves with their mouths wide open, putting weird faces and poses? I'm getting the feeling you don't want that from Dan and I. Just imagine
we've got next week's thumbnail nailed now.
Imagine it. I'll do mine like Home Alone. Just
we need to talk to James.
work. It would be ideal. But yeah, it's just honest and exactly that. See, if you can't have a beer with an opponent, you ain't a human being, in my view, and that's exactly it. And that's why we want to get opposition fans on, and that's why the opposition fans have come on. And to a man and woman, because we had one from Fulham saying they loved coming on the show and they'd be more than happy to come on again, because it's not about having an argument with them, making them feel small and being in a battle. That's not what it's about. It's football. You think about it, everybody sits here and says, and I think all three of us would say, we don't like Liverpool. We don't. Okay. But the simple fact that, not the place is fine. It's got the Beatles, the football club. Don't come at me. But I think every one of us knows a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
And we're not going to sit there and all of a sudden go mad at them and go, oh, I'm not talking to you just because you're a Liverpool fan. Because
I don't know. It's a little bit different when it's your brother, though, Larry.
I mean, I'll agree with that. But that's the whole point. Is you just have banter with them. So why is it you can have banter with your mates who support different football clubs, but the minute they become people you don't know, all of a sudden, it's like you've ended up in the Battle of Dunkirk. How has that happened? Hang on. How is it like you've ended up in the Battle of Dunkirk? There you go, NT. Got there in the end. So yeah, I think just people just need to get a grip.
Leicester City have been promoted to the Premier League in breaking news.
Leicester City are back.
They are. Leeds losing means that they are definitely up.
Any thoughts on that? Do you reckon they will stay up next season?
If I'm not mistaken, they didn't lose many of the players, did they, Matt?
Don't think so. No, not that I can recall. I think Iheanacho and all them is still there. Harvey Barnes was one, but yeah, I think Iheanacho, Vardy's still there, and obviously Maddison was the other one.
Yeah,
that left. But other than that, yeah, they've got a good team. Like I say, a few more additions. I reckon they probably could stay up.
As long as they don't get down the Nottingham Forest route, they'll be fine.
They've had a good season, yeah.
Maybe just sign the 25.
Yeah, and they'll be in the same problem as Forest.
Oh my lord!
A year later.
Leeds lost 4-0.
4-0. Wow.
It was 4-0, yes.
Wow.
So there we go. Well, that's the Marcus Rashford chat anyway. I mean, I'm sure we could carry on talking about that for forever and a day. We've probably not changed much of the internet. I can't imagine there's many people sitting there listening to what we've got to say and feeling like we're changing the world. But that's the whole point. Maybe you agree with us, maybe you don't. Whack it in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking and what your thoughts are. Do it respectfully. Yeah, yes, I am bald. You don't need to tell me. It's fine. I know. It's not a point where I would look at that and go, bloody hell, was I? I didn't see. It must have been my terrible sight because of the fact I didn't go to Specsavers. Who knows?
I'm going to be honest. I had an haircut the other day, Barry, and they did that to cut my hair, and I had full panic mode that my hair was receding. It's not. I was in full panic mode. Thought I was having to go and buy the regain stuff.
Stop now, right? If you are receding, you just wait till it gets back to about here. At that point, it's receding, mate. I mean,
I can't afford that though because I've got bumps and lumps. Got bumps and lumps everywhere. I can't ever go bald. I have to get one of them fancy wigs.
You just have to get over it.
Gluty head.
We had a manager called Stino, and he just literally shaved it like properly, and we all did that for our trip to Wembley. Because fun fact for those of you that don't know, Stevenage Football Club were the first team to play along with Kidderminster Harriers at the new Wembley in a competitive final in the FA Trophy, which we won, thankfully. And yeah, we went there to celebrate that. And honestly, we all shaved, like I say we all, a lot of us shaved our heads bald for that. And the effort that you had to go into with a razor for that, I was like, I'm never doing that again. That is just, so even if I've just got a tiny little tuft left, I will stick with that, like my own little mini ponytail. It is. It does show you're alive. Absolutely. So there we go. But yeah, listen, look at us rambling on 90 minutes. We managed the whole match once again. And that last bit obviously took up a lot. But Matt, thank you very much for joining us again. Have you had a good evening?
I have, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Nice to be on again. Thanks for having me. It seems like a while since I was last on. But yeah, it's great fun, and nice to be on with Dan for the first time.
Indeed. Yes, absolutely. He was dying to meet you as well. So yes, Dan, Matt, Dan.
I was very impressed with the last
Didn't
show.
like with your tweets and retweeting, so yeah.
Indeed. And speaking of tweets and retweets, Matt's done a brilliant job of throwing that out there as well. So if you're on Twitter and you're seeing a few of our bits, do like and retweet and send it all around. Let your friends know, because we're all about the community here. We love our little community. We would love some more people to come in and join it as well if they want to. It's all good stuff. So thank you. Well done, Matt. Do you want to give a shout out? So where can people find you if they wanted to?
Yeah, just on X, Twitter, X, what the people call it these days, whatever they want to call it.
I will never call it X.
No, I don't. Twitter's the way forward to me. It's like people say, do you post? Have you put a post up or an X? What makes no sense. But yeah, if you want to check me out on Twitter, my handle's just to the left hand side of me. I believe it's the left. Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate that if you could drop me a follow.
I was talking to someone yesterday who actually had in their bio a link for a MySpace page.
Oh my wow.
I nearly fell off my chair. I'm like, surely that doesn't work. It did. It was still there. I mean, oh my God, just hidden somewhere in the corner. Like it's like being in the attic. MySpace still exists. It was unbelievable. Wow. I know. Shocker.
Incredible.
There we go. Brilliant. Listen, it's been brilliant. Guys in the chat, you've been superb. Thank you. And girls, if there was any there, you've been superb. Thank you for joining us once again. We're coming back again in 24 hours' time, trying to cut through the gristle of what's happened. Hopefully, we've got ourselves 3 points. We're a little bit closer to Spurs, and we're just putting a tiny bit of pressure on them in the hope that they can be a little bit Spursy. Equally, maybe we're not. Maybe Burnley have got themselves out of relegation only to find themselves put straight back there when Nottingham Forest get another 3 points back. Who knows? Who cares? Nothing to do with us down there. We've got our own little battles to face, and we will face them together, as we always do, because we are, after all, Manchester United. See you tomorrow.